10:22, Dan Delmar filling in just for this morning. Then I'm back on Montreal now, 2 to 6 next week, in for Aaron. And on the line now is economist Vincent Geloso, affiliated with the Montreal Economic Institute. We spoke a couple days ago in Montreal now about building up in Montreal, and I thought we'd keep the conversation going as it was shortened by our little storm situation. Vincent, thanks for joining us again.
It's a pleasure to be here.
So first, you're still, I guess you have one foot in Montreal, right? You're still affiliated with the MEI?
I still keep my eye back on my former chaos of a home.
Good, because I was talking, I talked to a few people today. We're going to have Ensemble Montreal later in the show on housing. We spoke to Jimmy Zubris from the city, our co-panelist, Meeker, as well. I mean, everyone thinks it's the worst thing in the world to build taller than the mountain. I can't convince anyone of this. I understand if it's like right next to the mountain. I don't want to build on top of the mountain. But if you're like several kilometers away, it seems like this is one of the easiest ways to put more people in homes, Vincent, would be to just say okay to building taller than the mountain, and then developers can build more homes in one shot while they're already building.
So I would say that would be one way. So there's height restrictions to cities, and what they prevent is greater density. And the arguments that generally is presenting is an aesthetic argument, and it's the aesthetics of who? The regulator, the city officials. In doing so, they're generally imposing onto people their own general taste, and maybe those of voters who would be unhappy with the construction of better housing, but it comes with a social cost of importance. Is we can't build as densely, rents are higher, we are going to have some environmental conditions of that because density is tied with generally environmental improvements. So the arguments for heights restriction are generally of an aesthetic nature rather than anything else. And I think they are insanely weak arguments. I think it's important to realize that the greatest silver bullet we have in terms of improving economic growth, in terms of improving intergenerational income mobility, of reducing crime, of facilitating family formation, the one silver bullet is housing deregulation. Build, baby, build is the thing we should be able to do, largely because housing is a large share of people's expenditures, but housing, especially in cities, is accessing places of great opportunities, places where employment is better than everywhere else. It's in cities that you find not only greater employment opportunities, but also greater amenities, greater services. So blocking construction in cities, not just through height restrictions, there's a series of other horrible things that the well-described incompetent mayor of Montreal is facilitating. By doing so, ends up deterring great social advancements that we could obtain by just following the build, baby, build policy.
I do push back on the incompetent charge a little bit, only because everyone seems to be incompetent on this file in Montreal and Quebec. And
I'm not. Listen,
with Coderre, Tremblay, everyone, also the opposition, they all agree on this, Vincent. That's what's shocking to me. No one really wants to get serious about this. Your report shows that Montreal's housing market is more regulated than 73% of other Canadian cities. So obviously, I don't, as you'll hear a little later with our housing critic at Ensemble Montréal, je pense pas que le message passe avec eux non plus.
So I would point out this, that in economics there's a thing called the home voter hypothesis, and what it says is that people in cities who own housing are very reluctant to favor more construction. The reason why is it reduces the value of their houses, and it makes that everything that makes the city more attractive ends up being capitalized inside the home prices. So politicians have very few incentives to do these reforms because there's a group of established people who are voters in the cities who have no incentive to ask for this. The people who pay for it is people who would want to come to the city, who would want to access the opportunity of the cities, and people who are renters in the city. The fact of the matter is these policies are, if there's lack of appetite for it, it's not because they're potentially immensely good. It's because politicians are self-interested creatures, and we should educate people about the cost of their policy, and more importantly, they're catering to this home voter hypothesis by making it true. We should make them pay a price. What they're doing is making Montreal unaffordable, inaccessible, and depressingly going down the route of San Francisco and Toronto, which are horrible things to imitate.
I have these conversations on this topic, and I say, if there's a lack of housing, we should build more houses. And people are like, no, you're being overly simplistic. It's more complicated than that. I don't know. I think it's...
It's not.
I mean,
you were right.
Thanks. Thanks. I appreciate the validation. Lastly, we have about a minute left, Vincent, but can you talk about the Austin, Texas example? Because now they have the same problem that we did 10 years ago. And today, landlords are offering rebates to their tenants to convince them to stay. What specific regulations did they get rid of, and how can we be inspired by them?
So one of the things Austin is faced with a situation where Montreal could very well head this way, is they were losing a lot of people. People were finding the city so unattractive that they had to leave, and the city basically is going on a crash course where they're deregulating by removing parking minimums, but also allowing more uses or facilitating certain uses on already established terrain. So rather than having only single family housing on a particular lot, now it's allowable to build multiple units on the lot. So for example, you could add like an extra floor and rent. In your case, this is what they end up doing, and they're engaging in a crash course to keep the city attractive, to make it easy for people to come in and add units to the supply. So what's happening is at the same time that demand was falling, they're actually allowing supply finally to catch up, saying we need to make it so cheap to come here that units can be added and then start growing again. Montreal needs to do this before it ends up at the harder situation that Austin was in. But right now, Austin is doing the thing it should have done 10 years ago.
Vincent Geloso, the study is with the Montreal Economic Institute. You can find it on their website. He's also a professor of economics at George Mason University in Washington, D.C. Always a pleasure, Vincent, to hear your lucid thoughts and your analysis. I appreciate it.
It's a pleasure.
Take care.